The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
Today is a PSA about the ban of the Eeewsie, as it's being dubbed. The Eeewsie is a pirated rip-off, like a total pirate of the Woozie done by Woody. So, essentially what's been discovered is that a Chinese company it appears to be injection molding, maybe mass printing them, a unlicensed version of Woody's Woozie file. And so the problem is here that I know some people have already perked up and said, oh, we already use the Prophecy or other copies of pre-existing first-party blasters from Hasbro, is that those things are, I guess you could say, copycats where someone has tried to recreate the same form factor or that kind of thing. Whereas this, there's more egregious ones than others, and there's also the difference of, I think the Recon's been around for, I guess, over 10 years now, so it's how much leeway should someone get, or that kind of thing. And I also see other counter-arguments of, we're using third-party darts. Now, the problem with that is the micro standard, the half-inch micro standard, has been around, I think, for 20 years. When did the first blaster to use that standard come out? Because was the Power Strike, the old Mag Strike, did that use it? Because then it's definitely 20 years old, but I'm trying to think, I think N-Strike launched with the long shot, if I remember correctly, which would at least make it 15 years old. So it's Hasbro's had their time to make their money on that dart standard, and after the patent's up, or after it, becomes the norm, it turns into a commodity. You're seeing that kind of thing happen with smartphones, where all the smartphones are now looking the same. The same thing happens, that once the original creator or designer makes something, they've made their money and that kind of thing. The problem is, Woody has not had that chance to do that, and I believe the Woozie is a year or two old, somewhere in that ballpark. And this company has not contacted him whatsoever to license his design or that. They've just straight up copied it. So the response from the Australian community, and so all the event organizers have agreed to basically ban Eeewsies from events. Now, as a show of solidarity and to help protect the creators in the community, I've seen some responses to that along the line, a couple different counter arguments as to why we shouldn't be banning them. One of them is that it's not going to change anything, and it's no. We have had examples of when we have outcried, because they're the excuse is that because they're a Chinese manufacturer, they're not beholden to any legal requirements, so they're not going to do anything anyway. But the thing is, they do care about selling product. And there's also the other argument that, they're just going to sell it to the local market and forget about, the rest of the world. But the thing is, you've got the US market, the Australian market, which is, only 20 million people. It's a lot smaller. But you also have Southeast Asia, and you also have the Philippines, you've also got the UK, and you also got Europe. So, Germany and that kind of thing with those Nerf scenes. So it's it's not... I don't think any manufacturer really wants to completely limit who they sell to, and we also have a perfect example of how to do it correctly with Worker. Worker is a Chinese manufacturer. They aren't legally required to be beholden to creators, and yet they properly licensed the Caliburn from Captain Slug. They did that properly. And in another case of China, or Chinese manufacturers copying, they did also make a very similar scar barrel to that of the Blaster Tech one. Blaster Tech, kicked up a stink, and a lot of people showed their disappointment in that, and they retracted it. And so, while this isn't the same company, to just flat out say, they won't care, is I think, self-defeating, where when we do stuff collectively, we can make some difference or have some impact, but to turn around and just throw your hands up in the air and say that's not going to change anything, it's kind of just complacent. The other argument that I've seen is to say, what about new people like a year or so now, a year from now, who haven't heard about the ban, and are very new to like the community? They buy this thing and then they bring it to an event and then they're told they're not allowed to use it. No, like I think there's a little bit of that argument of, oh, that's anti-freedom, all that kind of thing. But the truth, that's the point. It is anti-freedom. Like, that's the point of rules, of laws, and on bans, to restrict people from doing things so that they can't negatively affect themselves or other people. Like, yeah, there's, that's the point, is to ban it. And the thing is, by doing a ban, that is it's like, oh, that's too much. No. That's the point. It's basically you don't want to tolerate this because it's a slippery slope. It's a slow creep that with a widening scope of complacency. Because eventually what's going to happen is that, okay, the first blaster gets copied. Who's next? Is it going to be the FDL or is it going to be the Bulwark? It just a Bulwark. Sorry, I speak Australian, not English. So, anyway, all I can think of is the long term. This is bigger than me or anyone, really. It's about the whole community and the future of it. And if that is something that you care about, then you got to think long term. And what will happen is that it will de-incentivize creators from making their projects more open and more accessible. It will lead to that complacency creep where all it will take is one Western reseller to start really selling these, and for that to become a norm. After everyone gets mad at them, it's like, oh, screw this guy and that, but still people are buying them because they're allowed to be brought to events. Then that it becomes a norm. Then other retailers are like, well, it's what's been done has been done, and so I'll just do it now myself. And that's not to like cast shade at any particular retailer or anything like that, because a lot of them are really awesome. We're very lucky to have so many like good retailers. So, but if there is like that gap in the market, there is that demand, and there's no restrictions on it, people are just going to do that. And so, what's better, to protect the entire community? That is the choice. To protect the entire community, or to give disappointment to future arbitrary people who haven't even joined the community yet because they can't use a purchase that they can't use at events. However, that same thing still happens. Like, if you have a 300 FPS blaster, you can't use that at like HVZ or that kind of thing. So like, I know that's a safety restriction and that's a different whole set of circumstances, and I'm not trying to create a straw man or that kind of thing, but it's an example of when we ban or restrict ourselves for the benefit of the group and for others and that kind of thing. And so I think this was a good choice to do. I hope this hasn't been too muddled and the sun is setting. I'm trying to like get this done in one take. So yeah. I hope that made some sort of sense. And I think this is important, and I think there is a choice to be made here, because when I think about the things that I love about the entire international scene, I think there's why nerf or that kind of thing. People have done these affirmations before, but it's like there's the maker and engineering side of it with the modding and that kind of thing. There is, and that free kind of, it's almost like hackery, the maker vibe, and then there's also the artistic vibe of the cosmetic things, and And then there is, making beautiful blasters is so nice and satisfying in that. It's and then you've also got the sports part of it. It's a combination of maker, practical, like applied engineering, like what is it? It's almost like Warhammer or Warhammer 40k or like your painted models or that kind of thing. But afterwards, you can actually use it, and then there is the sport side of it. Of like, imagine that you can actually play with your creations, and that it actually gives you tactical advantage and that kind of thing. And that, if we let this kind of thing slide and we tolerate it, and we let the complacency of where the new line of allowing people to do things to slide or shift, it's going to make those maker parts, the open maker scene, and the open cosmetic scene diminish and get smaller. It's going to be less open. It's going to be less cheap because people are going to just only sell already printed parts. Yeah. So even like there's also that other part too that, if there was the choice, right, between buying the digital copy of a blaster, right, so buying that digital license so you could print it yourself, or buying a pre-made knockoff, what are people going to normally choose? They're going to choose the convenience of that, unless there's some strong negative thing to not do that. And so, I don't know, I think it's for us to set the social standard of how we want to treat ourselves and our creators and members of our community. So I think it was a good choice, and I hope this has convinced you of something. Yeah, as the sun sets and the image gets really noisy, and I hope I've made some sort of sense. Anyway, I have been working on a very big video. It's like 36 minutes long. It's a giant-ass gameplay, and it's really cool. And my friend Diz, who was filming there on the day with his proper mirrorless camera and gimbal, I got some of his footage, and he is now also producing a score for the video. So, because he's a musician and that, it's sounding really cool. So, at the moment, the edit's done for that, and now I'm doing the monotonous task of subtitles and motion tracking people's heads to put usernames on top of them, and I've got other features and things and effects to add to it to really elevate it. And yeah, I feel like this video is kind of pushing my creative skills to the next level, that kind of thing. Anyway, so that's why it's taking months to make, or so long to make. Yeah, I hope to get that out. I just wanted to do this video to get the word out on something that is important. Alrighty, bye.